in the sky. Broad highways, low roads, high roads. This is the story of the sky highways of the United States Air Force. Allow me to introduce myself. I'm a chart. To tell you about me, I don't know anyone better qualified than I myself. Now, take Joe here, for instance. Joe's one of my boys, what's popularly known as a hot pilot who flies near the speed of sound. I happen to know Joe's needs because we fly everywhere together. I even know what he's thinking. I'll go IFR on the first leg, he says. Salton Sea's a prohibited area, but that's no problem on airways. Radio clearances at Thermal, Blythe, Phoenix, Winslow. I'll use Tucumcari as alternate. Estimate penetration of Albuquerque in 2 plus 0. At 13,000, I'll be above airways minimums all the way. Yes, Joe takes me for granted. And then sometimes it hits a guy. All the confidence he's put in something. In my case, I guess it's because I've never let him down. If I say a thing so on my charts, he can count on it. That builds confidence, which is kind of funny in itself because I haven't always told the truth. The yarns I used to spin were as wild as the blue yonder. I'd show men the way to continents and islands where there was only water. And you know what? Men would sail off and try to find them. Well, they never found those never lands, but they found others. That's when I was young. You see, I was a product of the times, a product of bold adventure, of even bolder imagination, a product of dreams of conquest, of new worlds, far-off riches, distant empires, of utopia and fantasy waiting beyond the horizon. Boy, was I a spinner of tall tales. I was as imaginative a piece of art as man could conceive his unknown world to be. Today, you, Joe, are the modern Balboas and Magellans. You're an exacting bunch of guys, and for you, I've got to be right, or else. Come here, I'll show you. You've hunted, but did you ever hear of geographic huntsmen? They're the surveyors who aim not with guns, but with transits, and they make me correct to a hair. To a hair, Joe, do you get that? But the information doesn't jump out of a transit and onto a chart just like that. Far from it, brother. Surveyors beat the bushes for it. And for what? Well, charts show the nation's defenders the way, in peace and in war. And that's a fair-sized order. Because charts are to the aircraft what the bomb sight is to the bombardier, what the gun sight is to the gunner. The chart delivers the aircraft to the target. Only then do the bomb sight and the bombs finish the job. That done, charts show the way home from any target anywhere on Earth. So men beat the bushes for charting information in various ways. Translators research countless publications, printed in many languages. Geographic attachés are on the job exploring the rich archives of other nations. Military airmen also forward data valuable to chart makers. In fact, an international exchange of charting information is maintained by friendly countries. By give and take, they share their knowledge of the common Earth. Then, into the nation's capital, the vast fund of charting information is funneled. And from it, vital data are extracted for the special requirements of the United States Air Force. The Departments of Defense and State, the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and even embassies have a hand in chart making. But my ancestral home is the Aeronautical Chart and Information Center at St. Louis. The Deputy Commander for Production and Distribution is in charge of more than 2,000 security-cleared personnel. As assignments are received from operations, he confers with his production staff. They're in charge of several important activities, such as cartography, photogrammetry, aeronautical information, and reproduction, involving 1,300 personnel. Well, I'm on my way. The worldwide research program pays off as uncompromising cartographers dig into the research material and select only the choicest of charting details from their vast reserves. The latest information is added to existing data after cautious screening, while roads, rivers, railroads, and cities begin to form a pattern in the work draft of the future chart. Already, spot elevations and contours take shape in a realistic facsimile of the actual terrain concerned. A chart is only as good as its cartographers and their sources of information. But why must this ceaseless quest for charting information never end? Because the Earth undergoes constant change. You see what I mean? And charts must mirror the Earth exactly. Man builds new highways, and charts must show them. He carves airfields out of distant jungles. With dams, he alters the courses of rivers and builds lakes that rival nature's own. As man remodels the face of the Earth, charts are changed and changed again, making the chart makers run and sometimes even fly to keep up. In fact, photogrammetry, a new science in chart making, has evolved from aerial photography. High-flying photographic studios, complete even to darkroom, soar through the skies at 5 miles a minute, documenting the Earth far below. At the controls sits a modern Vasco da Gama, called the Photo Navigator. He directs the aircraft's course, while as many as 20 cameras shoot at the ground like automatic rifles, bagging 9-inch pictures. Areas equal to the state of Nevada can be photographed in less than 40 hours. The secret is in another development called trimetragon, a big word simply meaning taking pictures of the ground from the air with 3 cameras, shooting at the same instant in different directions every few seconds. This photographic spraying of the Earth provides horizon-to-horizon picture coverage of the Earth's surface. At the end of the trimetragon mission, the film that's been exposed at high altitudes is escorted to the lab for processing and printing. Destination, Aeronautical Chart Plant. Even as I am en route, the chief of photogrammetry and his staff are making detailed plans both for my reception and my future. Shortly after arrival, my aerial photographs are deftly plotted on a plastic base. The area on the ground, pictured by each photograph, is located and marked until I look like a geometric painting. The control selector, like a biochemist, examines each aerial photograph. She searches for ground control points appearing in the pictures. These locations, which she marks, link the many ground features in the photograph to a definite geographic point. Calculators assist in measuring the exact amount of tilt in the aircraft's stance at the moment the picture was taken. Remember, in flight, no camera aircraft is a motionless platform for picture taking, so the degree of tilt is recorded on the photo for later reference. Single photos of adjacent areas are combined and their relationship established. Photogrammetric points are selected, and these, once pinpointed, are prominently circled before I move into other hands. Photographs taken along parallel flight lines are also precisely coordinated in proper continuity. And again, I'm inoculated with needle points, and the punctures circled and given key numbers as working references for other technicians, such as the operator of the radial line plotter. A basic step in chart making occurs when the operator transforms the aerial photograph into a paper template or paper die. Through the imaginary plumb point directly under the camera aircraft, rays are penciled outward to the geographic control points previously located for him. Supplied as he is with the focal length of the aerial camera, he rectifies the aircraft's tilt as he quickly makes one paper template after another. Several templates are combined by technicians who overlap and space them carefully, close or far apart, according to my future chart scale. The entire column is an exact duplication of the flight line of the camera aircraft that took the photographs. Another basic change takes place when the paper template is transformed into an identical copy made of steel. Starting with the shortest rays and ending with the longest, metal templates are built on top of paper templates. The center representing the plumb point under the original camera aircraft. I grow into a spider-like object that scarcely resembles an aerial photograph as the templates multiply. As soon as I'm ready, pins are driven through the maze of intersecting arms and legs, transferring the geographic control points in the metal templates onto the plastic base of the oversized future chart. Other technicians now adopt me and add more ground detail references. The more, the better. For every reference added is another guidepost for the chart makers themselves. They must find their way first before their charts can show the way to others. Meanwhile, private eyes, so to speak, read my photographs like fingerprint experts classifying whorls on a finger. Photo interpreters select and delineate ground features on the pictures that will appear on the chart, selecting neither too little nor too much information. Even too much is a hindrance in high-speed flight, but getting the information out of the photograph and onto the aeronautical chart is another matter. But they do it with the Sketchmaster. Like a tricycle sitting askew on three legs, the machine is adjustable to simulate the actual altitude of the camera aircraft. It also duplicates the camera aircraft's tilt position at the instant the aerial picture was taken, recapturing the pitch and roll of that split second. Thus, the ground details delineated by the photo interpreter are in turn transferred from the aerial photograph to the controlled chart base by the operator of the Sketchmaster. Now, all of the guideposts previously set down by others guide the hand. And, like a detective looking for flaws, the manuscript editor scrutinizes the freshly drafted ground detail until satisfied with its accuracy. He classifies roads, communities, drainage features, giving care to road patterns and other landmarks that provide identification from the air. I'm now ready for the addition of contours, those wandering hairlines that provide the pilot and navigator with the shape of the land under him, an important factor in emergencies, close support of ground forces, bombing, and navigation. And so contours are added by hands that plot to an accuracy of a few thousandths of an inch. Now, here's the thing that always fascinates me. Able to calculate more elevations in a day than the foot-sore surveyor can cover in 2 weeks is this modern son of Galileo. He spans entire mountain ranges, transit fashion, with uncanny accuracy and in an incredibly short time. Simply by squinting at aerial photographs and accomplishing the surveyor's usual mathematical gymnastics, he surveys thousands of square miles per hour from an armchair. No genie of the Arabian Nights ever went from mountain to mountain faster. Modern aerial photographs, together with the photo alidade, mass-produce elevations and contours for aeronautical charts. But aerial photographs of super quality have a special place in aeronautical chart production, a place of very high rank in a machine called the stereo plotter. Its meat is superior pictures, and it won't work without them. But pamper it with the best of photos, and it'll do almost anything. The pilot of the stereo plotter, goggles and all, adjusts instruments before taking off on a flight on which a three-dimensional world will unfold before his eyes. Then, as on a magic carpet, he skims the perfectly photographed landscape below. He looks now into a deep canyon, then glides over a mountain peak, recording what he wants of all that he sees from his lofty perch, while carefully watching his altimeter that records the varying elevations of the land over which he passes in his stereo plotter. And all the while, the line of his flight is being transferred to the chart base beneath. I, as an aeronautical chart, not only mirror the surface of the Earth, but also its peoples and their tongues. Charts, you see, must name names, call a spade, but in many languages. From many sources, a world of words and place names, correctly spelled and in current usage, are made to written order in the chart plant print shop. There I begin to talk in Aztec, Eskimo, Greenlandic, Icelandic, Oceanic, indeed in all the tongues of the earth. And words of these and other tongues eventually become part of the new aeronautical chart. But pilots and navigators and I have a language all our own. It is the language of aeronautical information. This I speak like a native, and for good reason. Technicians in this branch of chart making keep me supplied with the latest information on aeronautical facilities all over the world. Much of this material is utilized in a system of navigation born of the electronic age. From carefully tabulated data, aeronautical information specialists locate lines of position. And when this network of guidelines is pressed against my face, I become a Loran chart. Or, with a slight change in makeup, a console chart. Meanwhile, other specialists are preparing aeronautical overprints for navigation charts. They plot airdrome locations by symbol or runway pattern, and they show the name and the airdrome elevation and length of the longest runway. They add isogonic lines, which show the variation between magnetic north and true north. They show airspaces which aircraft may need to avoid, such as prohibited areas, restricted areas, and danger areas. Radio navigational aids identify each station by name and type of facility. To the airmen, these are the signposts along the highways in the sky. When this aeronautical overprint is added to the other geographical features and data, I become a complete aeronautical chart. Aeronautical charts are used to determine visual and radio aids, which might be used in solving the navigational problem. To supplement radio information shown on aeronautical charts, the ACIC produces radio facility charts, commonly referred to as the RFC. The airman locates the radio aids by name in the RFC, where he will find identification signals, frequencies, and other data pertaining to the radio aids which he will use. The RFC also shows radio navigational aids by symbol, name, frequency, and identification signal, plotted in their correct geographical positions. It shows the civil airways or corridors, including the minimum en route altitude, and the distances between checkpoints, restricted areas, prohibited areas, and danger areas, control areas, control zones, and the ADIZ boundaries, as well as all other data necessary for flight operations. Finally, airdromes are added to complete the chart page. Airdrome data is also given on the tabulation page, where the elevation, distance, and bearing between the radio facility and airdrome is shown. In the directory of airdromes, coded data is provided, indicating runway surface, length, weight-bearing capacity, lighting, repairs, and fuel. Once the pilot knows his position, he can plan the radio aids he should use and airways he should travel to reach his destination. In this case, Harmon Air Force Base. But if Harmon has instrument conditions, he must use still another chart to complete his flight. The ACIC produces instrument approach and landing charts for just this situation. It provides the airman with his initial approach altitude. It indicates the Z marker and the cone of silence, the procedure turn, the minimum altitude over the low cone. In fact, the works. By now, the different types of information I give have been separated and divided into each color I am to be. One technician makes an exact copy of everything in me that's red. Another extracts all of my blue features, and so on, until I'm dismembered. The reason being that presses can't print all colors at one time. Even as that's being accomplished, other charts are being assembled, such as a mosaic in the making. Lying at the bottom of a sea of gum arabic, mosaics often contain more than 3,000 aerial photographs. The mosaic is a picture chart, one that consists of many individual hand-picked photos. These, one picture at a time, are combined on a controlled chart base. Each photo is feathered by hand along the edges, and each one is also sponged and pressed and cleaned. Then all are dried under a glow of infrared in a room that is scientifically humidified to prevent shrinkage. The photo mosaic is considered to be the ideal target chart. Consequently, the ACIC compiles charts on almost every potential target in the form of target mosaics. Potential target area X is an example. X is a typical large metropolitan city. Not just one target mosaic or target complex exists for City X, or merely 20, or 30, or 100, but several hundred target charts, each of them compiled by ACIC, and each with its own special reason for existence. Precision bombing and precision chart making go hand in hand. Projection ruling machines draw the ancient meridians and parallels of Dysarchus, who first drew them by hand 2,000 years ago. Today, his parallels are even drawn to scale, automatically, and with a precision that challenges microscopes. The dream of dreams of Mercator and my other forebears. One of my present-day relatives is the head of reproduction, into whose hands I pass for inspection prior to printing. The reproduction process begins with the copy camera. There, I'm propped up for my portrait, and a duplicate is made of me, reduced to the size that I'll actually be in some pilot's or navigator's hands. Still far from being a chart, my separate negatives, one for each color that I'm going to be, are checked to see if they match. Retouch artists labor over minute details in my negatives. You've heard of people you can see through? Well, that's me about now. They pour albumin of hen's eggs and other stuff on a zinc plate to make it sensitive to light. When the zinc comes in contact with the negative and is exposed to light inside a vacuum frame, the image of a chart is transferred to metal and becomes a lithographic plate. Meanwhile, strong-armed paper cutters are busy cutting 1,000 massive sheets in one bite. My private stationery is of the best, and for a very good reason. A chart has to be ready for almost anything. Take a dunking, for example. The drink's unfriendly, especially to charts. You can imagine what the drink could do to me, except for one thing. Air Force charts are printed on paper that withstands submersion in seawater for 2 days and nights. I may look fragile, but I'm as tough as a master sergeant. My family at the chart plant sees to that. More than one airman owes his life to the many things that I am. Almost everything else has happened to me, and now I'm wrapped around the cylinder of a lithographic press and locked in. And around I go, pressed again and again against sheets of wet-strength paper 4,000 times an hour, hour after hour. it gets doggone monotonous. And out I come. Charts by the millions. Charts by the ton. By the carload. Charts of every size, color, and shape. And most important of all, charts for every need of the nation's Air Force. Special aero navigation charts for planning long-range missions. Tracking charts for tracking aircraft by electronics. Special LORAN charts for the central North Atlantic area. Guided missile plotting charts. Grid navigation charts for instruction purposes covering the Middle East. Equidistant charts of the world. Air Force student weather charts for instruction in meteorology. Aeronautical planning charts for strategic and long-range tactical planning. Charts of temperature provinces and ocean currents. Pilotage and approach charts. Atmospheric pressure zones and the air movements of the world. Yes, charts by the millions. ACIC produces and maintains more than 6,000 separate aeronautical items and services on a weekly basis over 125,000 pilot handbooks. Aeronautical charts must be maintained in immense reserve for any foreseeable emergency anywhere in the world and for normal Air Force operation at all times on a global scale. Packed in watertight, crash-tested boxes made especially for me, thousands of cases and cartons of aeronautical charts are transported monthly from the Chart Center. First, in its own fleet of trucks to the dockside, and then into the waiting holds of ships bound for distant harbors, or by air to reach the scattered global stores of the Aeronautical Chart and Information Offices overseas. The global store in Tokyo, Japan, for example, is the distribution center in the Far East for aeronautical charts. Other global stores throughout the world service their own areas with charts. Although each store concerns itself primarily with charts of its particular area, it also maintains a complete worldwide coverage of charts, which emanate from one source, the Aeronautical Chart and Information Center at St. Louis, Missouri. Wherever Joe may be or wherever Joe is going, I go where he goes and where Bob and Chuck and the others go. I'm the other hand on the stick. I show the way along highways that fit into Joe's pocket, that sit in his lap or on his knee. And no matter where they're headed, chances are chart makers have been there first. And that's a good feeling before soaring into the blue. Yes, I'll always be needed. Tomorrow, just as I am today. I am the highways located between the earth and the sun. The highways in the sky.